The 1970s gave us pure soul magic, from Marvin's What's Going On to Earth.
Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Hey.
Wind and Fire's Cosmic Funk.
Used to be happy, sad, yeah.
But even legends stumble. Between disco overkill, label pressure, and artistic experiments gone sideways, some R&B records just missed the groove. So, let's dim the lights and spin through the top 10 worst R&B albums of the 70s. Number 10, Come Get It by Rick James. 1978. Before you gasp, yes, Rick James brought the funk. But Come Get It wasn't the wild masterpiece people remember. It was a messy first step that almost didn't launch his career. Released in '78 on Motown's Gordy label, this debut tried to fuse hard funk, disco sheen, and a touch of rock swagger.
Don't stop now. Showtime, y'all. For all you stones.
And wound up sounding like 3 albums fighting for attention. Behind the scenes, Motown wasn't sure what to do with Rick. They wanted another Temptations, but Rick wanted to shock the world. The production swings from muddy to manic, with tracks like You and I hinting at genius, but buried under overblown horns and aimless arrangements. Still, hearing it now, you can feel the raw energy of a man about to define a sound. Just not yet. This was the spark before the inferno, the funk embryo before the fire. If that was a misstep on the road to greatness, wait till you hear the next one. A Soul Sisters disco detour that had fans crying for mercy. Number 9, Koo Koo by Diana Ross. 1979. Now, let's talk about a queen whose crown never slipped, but this album sure did. Koo Koo, 1979, was Diana Ross's awkward attempt to chase the disco high one beat too late. After the boss lit up the dance floors earlier that year, Motown and Diana tried to stretch the magic, and the glitter snapped. Produced in the waning hours of the disco era, Koo Koo drowned Ross's elegant voice in syrupy strings, over-processed drums, and lyrics that could have come straight off a Hallmark card. Critics called it a love letter to a genre already fading, and fans couldn't disagree. Even Diana's signature poise couldn't rescue songs like It's My House from sounding like leftovers from a Bee Gees B-side. You could almost imagine the confusion in the studio. The same woman who once redefined sophistication in soul, now singing over 4-on-the-floor grooves that felt like roller rink filler. Still, even when she stumbled, Diana glowed. Koo Koo might have been a misfire, but it was proof she was fearless, chasing every era's sound before it came knocking. If this was disco exhaustion, our next entry is pure label chaos, where one of Motown's brightest young stars found himself buried under bad decisions in polyester production. Number 8, Just James by James Brown.
New Orleans, all the cats wanna dance with.
1975. Even the godfather of soul wasn't immune to the mid-70s funk confusion. Just James hit in 1975, a time when Brown was fighting to stay relevant amid disco fever and his own record label drama. After years of pioneering groove perfection, this album felt like a man caught between eras, trying to outdance the decade. Polydor wanted something commercial, something young. Brown wanted control. The result?
Oh, daddy, daddy, I beg you.
A disjointed record that wandered from limp love ballads to forced dance numbers. The once razor-sharp grooves were now clouded with bloated horn sections and cartoonish synth experiments. Even Brown's unmistakable fire couldn't ignite tracks like Love Me Forever or Leave Me Alone. It just didn't hit. Listening today, You can hear an artist wrestling with his legacy, tired but still swinging. There's a tragic beauty in that.
Sweet little 16, she got the grown-up blues.
Brown's energy burns through even when the songs don't. But if Just James was a stumble from a legend, the next album is a full-on crash landing. When a Motown prince tried to go psychedelic, and the results left fans scratching their afros. Number 7, MPG II by Marvin Gaye.
Baby, I'm hot just like an
1973. Now this one hurts, because Marvin Gaye could do no wrong. Until MPG II, released quietly in '73. This record was more of a label patchwork than a passion project. After the monumental success of What's Going On and Let's Get It On, Motown scrambled to cash in, stitching together outtakes, half-finished demos, and recycled riffs under the Marvin banner.
feeling, baby, is good for me, sexual.
The result? A collection that sounded like Marvin, but didn't feel like him. Songs drifted without direction, the mix muddy, and the soul, that spiritual ache Marvin poured into every syllable, just wasn't there. Fans knew it, critics heard it, and even Gaye later called it a label hustle. Imagine the heartbreak of dropping the needle, expecting velvet thunder and divine groove, only to hear a man who clearly wasn't in the room. It's a reminder that even genius needs time and space to breathe.
To really love mine, and it's good for us, sexual.
Still, the irony? Those discarded sessions hinted at the jazz and vulnerability Marvin would perfect later in the decade. Even his worst had seeds of brilliance. But where Marvin's misstep was born of exhaustion, our next album was doomed from ego, when one group's quest for reinvention turned into a cosmic flop. Number 6, Electric Universe by Earth, Wind & Fire.
I tell you endlessly how much
1979. By the late 70s, Earth, Wind & Fire were cosmic royalty, a band that turned soul, jazz, and spirituality into stadium-sized funk sermons. But Electric Universe? That was the sound of the mothership crashing back to Earth. Released in '79, it was their attempt to go futuristic, chasing the new electronic wave creeping into R&B. Maurice White envisioned it as a galactic rebirth, synths replacing horns, laser beams standing in for congas.
to the door you lead.
But what should have been revolutionary turned sterile. Gone was the warmth of reasons and the fire of Shining Star. Instead, fans got cold machine beats and space-age lyrics that felt more Star Wars soundtrack than Soul Symphony. Even die-hard fans were baffled. Critics called it beautifully produced emptiness. It didn't sell, didn't soar, and nearly fractured the group's identity heading into the '80s. Still, buried in the static, you could hear a band trying to evolve. A reminder that even the mighty risk falling when they reach too far for the stars.
They give us reason to fight for love today.
If this futuristic funk left listeners lost in orbit, the next one brought them crashing back to Earth. A comeback attempt that proved even kings of cool can sound, well, out of tune. If these 1970s soul experiments are bringing back memories, or maybe a few musical scars, hit that thumbs up. It helps keep the groove alive and the story spinning. And stick around, because the top 5 only get funkier, weirder, and a little more tragic. Number 5, Quiet Storm Returns by Smokey Robinson.
If I could feel her warm embrace.
1978. Smokey Robinson practically invented romantic soul with Quiet Storm in 1975. Smooth, sensual, and dripping with midnight magic. But when he tried to rekindle that spark 3 years later with Quiet Storm Returns, the fire just wasn't there. Released in 1978, this album felt like deja vu in slow motion, polished to perfection, but with no heartbeat underneath. The problem wasn't Smokey's voice. That silky falsetto still floated like candlelight. It was the songs. They sounded like recycled sketches, built from the same rain-soaked chords and whispered sentiments that once made him a legend. Even the production felt tired, chasing a formula instead of a feeling. You can almost hear Motown executives saying, "Just do that again." Fans who expected late-night poetry got lukewarm wallpaper soul instead. Critics called it the sound of a dreamer running on fumes. Still, even in mediocrity, Smokey had grace. And this album, though forgettable, reminds us how fragile magic can be when the industry tries to bottle it twice. If this was quiet disappointment, the next one was a loud disaster. A soul legend's attempt at funk rock that left everyone asking, who convinced him this was a good idea? Number 4, Skin Tight Revue by The Temptations. 1906. By the mid-70s, The Temptations were searching for a new identity. The psychedelic soul era that had given us Cloud 9 and Papa Was a Rolling Stone was fading, and the group wanted to stay relevant. Enter Skin Tight Revue, their attempt to fuse sensual funk with the flash of disco. The result? A dazzling mess in bell bottoms. Released in 1966 under Motown's Gordy label, Skin Tight Revue was all sequins and no soul. The lush harmonies that once melted hearts were buried under synthetic strings and a production so overstuffed it felt like a Vegas show trapped on vinyl. Even the choreography bled into the tracks. Body Heat sounded more like a stage cue than a song. It wasn't just overproduced, it was over everything. Critics said it best: a group chasing trends instead of setting them. For The Temptations, men who once defined class, this felt like a desperate lunge for the disco dollar. Still, you can't help but root for them. Even in failure, those voices shimmer through the glitter. If Skin Tight Revue was Motown's disco hangover, the next entry is pure heartbreak. A balladeer who tried to go funky and ended up losing his soul in the process. Number 3, Good Vibrations by Al Green. 1979. Al Green, the Reverend of Romance, the preacher of passion, rarely missed a note in the 70s. But Good Vibrations, his 1979 misstep, was that rare moment where the velvet turned to vinyl. Released on He Records, it was Al's clumsy attempt to blend his gospel soul roots with the rising disco craze. A collision that left neither side standing tall. Behind the scenes, Green was torn between the pulpit and the stage.
I'm picking up good vibration. She's giving me.
His spiritual awakening was deepening, but the label wanted another Let's Stay Together. The tension shows. The grooves are stiff, the lyrics oddly detached, and even Al's legendary falsetto feels like it's wearing a polyester suit 2 sizes too tight. Critics called it a disco sermon gone wrong. Fans were confused. Some swayed, others prayed. Listening now, you can almost hear the struggle of a man trying to serve 2 masters, God and groove. Still, even at his weakest, Green's voice could turn any melody into a confession. Good Vibrations was his farewell to the dance floor. Awkward, brave, and deeply human. If that one had you swaying in confusion, brace yourself. Our next album comes from a group who traded sweet soul for space funk, and the crash landing was cosmic. Number 2, Sky High by the Stylistics.
Did you love? I thought
that we had made.
1978, oh, the Stylistics, the architects of elegance, the sound of slow dances and city lights. But by 1978, even they weren't immune to the pull of disco's glittering gravity. Sky High was meant to lift them into the new era. Instead, it left them stranded somewhere between heaven and heartbreak.
All I had to give, why did it have?
Produced during a period of tension between the group and longtime producer Tom Bell, Sky High was their first album without the man who had sculpted their signature sound. And you can feel his absence immediately. The strings are gaudy, the arrangements clunky, and poor Russell Tompkins Jr., that angelic falsetto, is buried beneath layers of synths that buzz louder than his voice. Songs like Dance All Night tried desperately to capture the disco crowd, but they lost the tenderness that made Betcha by Golly, wow, timeless. It's like watching a poet forced to shout over a nightclub beat. Commercially, the record stumbled, and critics called it the fall of the falsetto. It's a bittersweet listen today. The sound of sweet soul surrendering to a fad. But if you think Sky High was the biggest fall of the decade, hold on. Because our #1 pick is a legend's total meltdown. A La Funk pioneer lost in his own echo chamber of excess. #1. The Electric Spanking of War Babies by Funkadelic.
Forget it. Ooh, when you
1979, when George Clinton and Funkadelic dropped Maggot Brain earlier in the decade, they reinvented funk, a psychedelic sermon wrapped in distortion and genius. But by 1979, the acid had cooled, the band was fracturing, and the Electric Spanking of War Babies became the messy symbol of a movement gone off the rails. Warner Brothers didn't even want to release it. The title alone caused controversy. Too provocative, too political, too weird. But Clinton pushed it through, piecing the album together from leftover studio scraps and wild studio jams. What we got was chaos. Distorted vocals, half-baked hooks, and lyrics that sounded like inside jokes from an after-party that never ended. Gone was the sharp, syncopated brilliance of One Nation Under a Groove. In its place stood a bloated, overindulgent experiment. Funk stretched to its breaking point, too. Some tracks were genius glimpses buried under noise, others were unlistenable. And yet, there's something tragically poetic about it. This was the end of an era, funk's last gasp before the synthesizers and drum machines of the 80s took over. The Electric Spanking of War Babies wasn't just a bad album. It was a farewell to the wildest, freest decade R&B ever had. From overproduced disco disasters to soul legends lost in transition, these albums remind us that even greatness can stumble. And that's what makes the 70s so human, so unforgettable. Thanks for joining us on this soulful stroll through the strangest corners of R&B history. If you love this journey through the misfires and mayhem, subscribe to keep the groove alive and click the end screen to roll into our next video. Top 10 Worst R&B Albums of the 60s. Because every fall in soul history has its rise, and trust me, the next chapter is pure redemption.